Hey y'all, this is episode number 27. Going to be talking about the Bernie Sanders campaign and the controversy there regarding not paying the staff $15 per hour. So a little bit of irony and some kind of funny, comical to talk about in that regard. And if you are in the Austin area and you're looking to have your TV mounted on the wall, or maybe your sound system upgraded, or anything regarding your entertainment system in general, check out Bat City TV. Let them know that the Sovereign Individual podcast sent you, and you will receive a discount there. And thank you once again to Flavor Rate for creating the intro music you're about to hear. Their EP, All My Life, is available on Spotify and wherever you stream music. So I hope you go check that out and find that EP to be as enjoyable as I find it. And please enjoy this episode. What's up, y'all? This is the Sovereign Individual Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Guerra. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I really do appreciate it. And if you're liking what you're hearing so far, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe, rate, and review the show, and then also share it with anybody else you think might find all this kind of stuff interesting. My voice is a little off today. I had a wrestling show last night. I'm a ring announcer for a company here in Austin, so voice is a little shot. Do a lot of yelling whenever those shows happen, but I got some other stuff going on this week, so I wanted to make sure that I got recorded today. It was this was an episode I was intending to record last week, but as I've come to learn, sometimes life gets in the way. So either way, we're here, and we're going to be talking about something that just, man, it's delicious. This little piece of news and controversy, I guess you could say, that's come out of one Bernie Sanders campaign. This little taste of socialism is what I'm going to refer to it as, that Bernie's campaign is getting exposed to. Just the littlest taste of what socialism actually looks like. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's going on. Bernie Sanders obviously running for president and is faced heat. There's been negotiations. So his campaign staff has unionized. I believe Elizabeth Warren also has staff that's unionized as well. That's, again, a whole other thing. There'll be episodes coming down the line that talk about unions and all that kind of stuff. Free association, I'm totally in support of. Anything that's government mandated, obviously not whenever it comes to unions. But so there's been negotiations, and they spilled out into the public arena and into the media. And the fact that Bernie was not paying his campaign staff $15 an hour, which, if you are aware of Bernie Sanders, that's one of his main sticking points. That's something that every company should be required by law to do, and he's always, talking and coming at different large organizations for not doing so, and so then it's interesting that he also wasn't doing the same. So they came to an agreement that's going to be reduced hours so that folks can make sure that they're making $15 an hour. You'll get your $15 an hour, but you're going to be working less in order to make sure you get that. So it's going to be less take-home money. I'm not going to pay you $15 an hour for the amount of work that you're doing now. I'll reduce your hours so that then it'll be $15 per hour that you're making, which is just, that's funny to say the least. I don't want to pay you $15 an hour for the amount of work you're doing right now, so I will reduce your hours. Because this is the same guy. Millionaires should be able to pay a living wage. The top 1% of the top 1% of the top 17% of the top 49% control 47% of the top 45% of the top 50% of all the wealth, or whatever it is that he says. Bernie, who is a millionaire, by the way, he is a millionaire. He owns 3 homes. This was before he wrote. I wrote a book, and it was popular, and I made a lot of money off of it. It's funny how capitalism can work for people in that regard. But yeah, Bernie is a millionaire. Bernie is a man who maxes out his deductions, so he pays the least amount of taxes as possible. Doesn't give jack to charity. It's a tiny amount that he gives, and so this is just kind of interesting that this millionaire who's part of the 1%, which is why I think we've seen his language shift and solely focusing on billionaires now, because now Bernie's a millionaire, so you can't really complain that much and talk about how much needs to be stolen from millionaires, so he has to transfer it to billionaires because now he's part of the 1%. But yeah, so they should be able to pay their workers a living wage. But that's interesting that you don't pay your workers, you don't give them that same amount. And then when they demand that, you reduce their hours so that you can say that you're paying them $15 per hour. Now, granted, this is a campaign that set the record for first day donations. Within the first week, they had $10 million in their war chest. The second quarter numbers just came out, and they made roughly $18 million in donations during the second quarter. So this is a campaign that's not hurting for money. They're flush with cash, and they're not paying their workers what Bernie is demanding that every other business do, no matter what size you are. You could be a mom and pop shop in the middle of, Nebraska, and you would have to pay $15 per hour when that's high. Again, you're talking about what constitutes a living wage. There's not a living wage that is inherent throughout the entirety of the nation. That's why when you're talking about something like this, when you're talking about something that's federally mandated at the end of the barrel of a gun violence being used to enforce it especially doesn't make sense in a situation like this. Why is something being decided for the entirety of the nation that's not going to play out? Because $15 per hour isn't enough to live on in New York or LA or Chicago. It's probably somewhat enough to live off of here in Austin because it's still not too expensive, but it's getting to a point where $15 an hour probably isn't enough to just to be able to live super comfortably on. You still probably could if you do it the right way. But again, we're talking about, and then you've got places like Nebraska in the middle of there, and plenty of places in the Midwest, or small towns in Texas, or small towns in California, or small towns in New York, where you are able to live off of far less. The cost of living is significantly reduced. So it's just another reason why federally mandating something like that is idiotic. And I mean, you're talking about, his campaign has made an insane amount of money and wasn't doing the same. And that's kind of the problem that you get into and what the reality of socialism looks like, especially when you're talking about it coming from leaders like this. What Bernie Sanders means and what AOC and her ilk mean whenever they're talking about socialism is socialism for you, not for me. And that's the way that they truly view how this is all going to go down. You got a guy like Bernie who doesn't pay his workers what he is demanding that everybody else be forced to pay through the threat of violence. Because in a situation like this, and again, this is why I'm saying his campaign staff is just getting a little taste of what socialism really is like, because I'm sure everybody who's working on his staff is obviously friendly to the idea of socialism, and why that idea still takes hold, why people who ignore the realities of what socialism truly looks like and the catastrophic damage that it's done, and who just claim that real socialism hasn't been tried. The reason that they're so okay with the idea is because everybody thinks that they will be part of the elite. They're going to be the elite class, the artistic class, the sophisticated class that gets to just enjoy and create and all this other stuff, and don't have to really put in any work and get to reap the benefits of the socialist system. But that's not how it goes. It's the tiniest percentage of the population that actually experiences that type of lifestyle within the socialist system. The rest of us are the people that are starving. You starve in the socialists. You're in the breadline with the rest of us. For people like Bernie and AOC and her little whatever, the squad, whatever the hell they call themselves, they're the ones that they plan on enacting this, because as long as they hold those positions of power, they get to enjoy the lifestyle that they're living right now, and that's not going to be a change for them. It's the same way. It's the exact same way with AOC and her Green New Deal nonsense. She doesn't live by that. If she believed in it the way that she claims that she does, she would be actively trying to take steps herself in her own life to live that. But no, that's not what she wants. She wants to use violence, the violence of the state, to force everybody else to live that way so she can continue to live comfortably the way that she wants to live. If she really felt that way, she would never get on a plane again. She would never eat another cow, because that was part of it too. She would never ride or drive a car. She would only use, public transportation. I don't even remember if that's part of the Green New Deal. She would ride her bike everywhere. She would ride her bike into the Capitol every single day, but she doesn't do that. And again, that's fun. I have no problem with not wanting to live that way. I thoroughly enjoy the fruits of the capitalist society that the United States has come up in, and that we all currently enjoy right now. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to be demanding that everybody else live a certain way, you better damn well sure be living that way yourself. It's one of the beauties of being part of the liberty movement, or part of the anarchist movement, or anarcho-capitalist movement, the libertarian movement. I'm not demanding that anybody lives anyway. I don't care what it is that you do. You don't bring violence upon peaceful people, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not demanding that you change your lifestyle in order to fit into what I believe you should be doing. All I'm demanding is that you respect my freedom and my right to live my life the way I want, and I will do the same for you. And you don't bring violence against peaceful people, and no violence will be brought upon you. So it's a much easier argument to make. And it's really easy then to be able to live your life by that motto, because however you want to live your life, you're living within that. You're not being hypocritical in any way, because you want everybody to be able to live the life that they want to live, and to have the freedom to do so, and not to be threatened with violence from the state in order to readjust their behavior or act in a certain way. But that's not what you're getting with socialism. And again, this is just the tiniest little taste that you're getting of what it really looks like, what it really is going to be. And you think about it too, with Bernie's campaign, this is, like I was saying, this is a wealthy campaign. They are not strapped for cash. They're not hurting for money. And he's not able to do this. Imagine what happens in a socialist country when you run out of money to steal. When there's not more people that you can forcibly take stuff from. And that's where you get these situations like we've had. That's where you get how socialist nations have killed tens of millions of people in the 20th century. That's why I'm so vehemently against it. That's why this type of behavior doesn't surprise me either. Because again, everybody thinks they're going to be the elite in the socialist society. But you're not. You're going to be in the breadline. You're going to be starving. And the other thing, that again, they just got the littlest taste. Because there was a federal labor complaint that was filed. And it alleges illegal employee interrogation and retaliation by the Bernie campaign. Now that is interesting, because that is probably the best little taste of what you get with socialism. But again, it's not even close. So the interrogation would be, that's going to happen in a socialist nation, but it's going to occur at the gulag. It's not going to be an uncomfortable setting where you're just mentally uncomfortable, and then you get to go home from your job where you had the interrogation, and you just get to go home and live your normal life and file a complaint with with some sort of bureaucratic body about what happened. No, what happens is you get interrogated in the gulag, you're getting tortured, you're getting physically abused, and then so they can force you to admit to something that you aren't guilty of, or maybe are guilty of. You're thinking the wrong way, wrong think, whatever it is. You're challenging the authority of the state. You're challenging what it is that the state represents and what they're doing. And then they kill you, or they just leave you locked up in the gulag. They come and take you and your family in the middle of the night, and they either kill you all, kill some of you, put some of you in the gulag, whatever it is. That's what happens in a socialist nation. That's, you don't get to file a complaint about it. You don't get to bring it up. You don't get to go to the negotiating table and demand, a higher hourly wage. Or, in that case, probably you'd be demanding more food, or any food at that matter, in a socialist nation. So, again, the tiniest little taste that the Bernie campaign was getting of what actual socialism is going to look like, what these policies that Bernie wants to put into place look like. Because, again, he's basing he was a huge fan of the USSR. He was praising the Soviet Union left and right. He went there for and it surprises me in no way. This is a guy who's never worked in a serious matter in a day in his life. He's never provided anything to society. He's never provided jobs for anybody. He got kicked out of a commune for being too lazy. You know how lazy you have to be kicked out of a commune? That is insane. So in no way does it surprise me that the Soviet Union seemed like this awesome thing to him. Like, oh, you don't even have to work and you can just get stuff? Yeah, of course that seems awesome to a guy like Bernie Sanders. He got back from the Soviet Union and was praising them and talking about how good that country was. This was right after Chernobyl happened. For those of you who have watched that HBO show, and I think I want to do an episode about that show as well, but that's neither here nor there. And this is the same guy. When I say you're standing in the bread line or the food line, that's not a good thing. You're standing in line hoping that you're able to get some food that day, and you're hoping you're not going to be at the cutoff where they run out of food, and then everybody else in the line at that point is, SOL. Bernie is on record saying, food lines are good. That means there's food. That means there's food to go around. You're able to go get food. No. There's a meme online, and it's so great. And it's just talk about, the difference between capitalism and socialism. Socialism, you have to go and sit in a line for bread, and hopefully you get some. In capitalism, bread waits there in line for you. It's got a picture of bread, bakery section in a grocery store, and all the bread's just lined up on the shelves there, just waiting. So it's, again, this is the interrogations is a little preview of what happens. And again, this is the problem with socialism. I talked about it in the very first episode. I'd like to think I've come a long way since then, and the quality of the episodes have gotten considerably better. But the idea of collectivism, it's dangerous because it exists within a country as well, and especially in a socialist type system where you have the elite. Again, everybody thinks they're going to be the elite, but they're not. It's going to be a tiny fraction. But that elite has a collectivist view of the rest of the nation, of the people. And they don't care for their suffering. They don't care about the fact that they're dying and they're starving and that they're locking people up for trumped up charges of absolutely nothing, of daring to question the state or daring to think differently, daring to think outside the box. They don't view them as people anymore. They view them as a collective, and it's the people may have to suffer, but it's going to be okay because we know what's best, and we're going to make it all worth it. And we just need to get us to a point where everybody can thrive, and it's okay. The people are going to have to suffer, but it'll be worth it. And that's where you run into, and that's what's so scary about the idea of socialism, and the idea that it's taking root, and that what Bernie's doing right now within his own campaign is just the tiniest little preview of what that looks like when people are in power in a system like that. and what they do and how hypocritical they are and how they don't hold themselves to the standard that they're forcing everybody else to at the end of the barrel of a gun. And trust me, it's a much more violent thing within the socialist nation, because first of all, they're going to try disarming the entirety of the population, because again, it does not work if you have an armed population that can revolt against you and that can push back. You have to disarm in order to have a socialist nation. You cannot have an absolute control by the state with an armed population. So it becomes a lot more scary in that situation, because they, in theory, have disarmed the population. So then they can really do whatever they want. They can really use the end of a barrel of a gun much more easily than they can now. Because even now, I mean, it still happens. You still have, agents of the state in either, in the form of police, home or the military abroad, that are using violence to force people to act in a certain way. And it would get even worse in the socialist nation. So that's again just kind of, it's ironic, it's funny. I have no sympathy for this campaign and everything that it's going through right now, because this is the exact type of nonsense that he preaches and that he wants to see implemented in the United States. So I have no sympathy for his campaign going through this, for it being very public and for it being egg on the face of the campaign. But it's scary, because this is what it would look like on a massive scale throughout the entirety of the nation if the United States were to ever become a socialist nation in that regard. So that's going to do it for this episode. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope you learned some stuff. And again, this is where the mindset of the liberty movement comes from. This is where the mindset of libertarians and anarcho-capitalists and regular old anarchists come from, is knowing what the history looks like on regimes that call themselves socialists and systems that call themselves socialists, and the massive amount of death that has resulted from them. And that's why I love the free market so much, because it can provide these solutions. It can, again, you have a line of bread waiting for people instead of people waiting in a line hoping for bread. So I've got some stuff coming up for work that's going to keep me busy this week, so I'm not expecting to record another episode this week unless maybe something will happen, and that would be cool. But we'll see if some free time pops up, but I'm not expecting to, so I expect the next episode to be out next Monday. I've also decided, I had an interaction at dinner the other night where I offhand was referencing another podcast I was listening to by this comedian Tim Dillon, and he was talking about Billie Eilish, and he referred to her, he said that she sounds like an MK Ultra victim, which I find hilarious, and I was laughing really hard because it's absolutely 100% true. That's what she sounds like. But in doing so, I was asked, well, what is MK Ultra? And so it made me realize that, not everybody lives in this world of critiquing the state and being hypercritical of the state and being, plugged into the liberty movement where you're aware of these types of things. You could say autistic. Libertarians are often referred to as autistic. Not everybody has this autistic mindset where they're latching on to things like this. And it just made me realize that would be a really good thing. I want to do a little kind of mini series before football season starts, because it's going to be I get really into football, so I'm really going to be probably only doing one episode a week during that time. So in August, before that starts, I want to do a week where I just I do an episode a day, and I'm going to be talking about different events and things that the state has done, the United States government has done, that we know about. These are just things that we know about, absolutely abhorrent things that they have done, that are part of the reason why I'm so distrusting, and why there's literally nothing that you could accuse the government of that I would say, no, that's too much. They would never do that. There's nothing that I would ever say that they aren't capable of doing. Whether or not I think they have actually done said thing that you're accusing them of is a different story. But you can never come at me with something and say, oh man, do you really think the government would do that? Yes, I do. And so I'm going to do a whole week-long series with with different events. I'll just pick 7 of them, one for each day, and I'll just dive into that specific event and everything that went on with it and how the government was culpable for it. And just to kind of show this is why I don't think there's anything that the United States government and the state is not capable of. So look forward to that. I'm not sure exactly when in August, but I'll keep you all posted on that. So thanks again for listening, y'all. And you are a sovereign individual, and so is every single person on Bernie's staff that was not getting paid the $15 an hour that he demands from everybody else. So thanks, y'all.